The excuse used for human rights abuses such as BEE and employment equity laws targeting young white South Africans belonging to a tiny minority is always the term redress. Redress in itself implies that the laws are necessary to correct systematic past injustices. Because the ANC dispensation uses apartheid as a tool to punish the white youth today, most of whom had never even been born in apartheid or been born a decade or more after apartheid ended. It is time we take a deep dive into the aspects of apartheid the ANC proclaims to want to correct and start speaking the truth about apartheid in and of itself. Was apartheid's economic system really a mirror image of BEE, government-sanctioned discrimination designed to uplift one race at the expense of another? In today's video, we will be exposing one of the best-kept secrets in South African history, the real truth about apartheid. By now, any follower of the content we produce here at the Willem Petzer Group should be extremely familiar with the concept of black economic empowerment and what exactly this entails. Yeah, we don't shy away from calling a spade, and for this reason we have extensively covered the detrimental effects that BEE has had on the South African economy since it was first implemented in 2003, and we had been doing so before it became cool and everyone else did it. Yet, the very ideological foundation of BEE, namely to supposedly redress injustices from the past, that disempowered blacks, or so-called disempowered blacks, and empowered whites should have their roles reversed. But this repeated reference to redressing the past begs the question, what exactly did happen in the past? Did the apartheid government in South Africa practice a form of white economic empowerment the way that the ANC practices black economic empowerment now? Stay tuned, because in today's video we are going to take a trip down history to see just what the apartheid government did. Did it exclude black people from the job market like BEE does? Did it force South African businesses to appoint white people in senior positions or give away shares of companies to white people? Yes, you might be in for quite a surprise if we look at the actual laws of apartheid. In 2003, when BEE was first implemented in South Africa, the Department of Trade and Industry's official paper, South Africa's Strategy for Broad-Based Black Economic Empowerment, realized alongside with the BEE Act. It stated that the purpose of the law is to bring about economic transformation in light of the fact that, and I quote, apartheid systematically and purposefully restricted the majority of South Africans from meaningful participation in the economy. But this begs the question of how exactly apartheid did this. What did these systematic restrictions imply, and what does meaningful participation in the economy actually mean? Well, to understand what exactly is referred to here as justification for racial discrimination today, let's take a look at what the apartheid government's labor laws actually looked like. We took a look at the labor laws of the apartheid government to compare them to BEE today. So first of all, it is important to note that before 1924, there were no racial laws, labor laws in South Africa. This means that for the first 14 years of the Union of South Africa, and indeed for the first 12 years of the ANC's existence, there were no regulations in terms of employment or doing business that pertain to the issue of race. In 1924, the first apartheid labor law, known as the Industrial Conciliation Act 11, prohibited black people employed outside of the mining industry from joining labor unions. And the rationale for this was quite interesting. As Prime Minister JBM Hertzog at the time explained, the whole idea of the law was to protect white laborers in manufacturing and transport industries from downward wage competition. So the idea here was that black people were being employed for cheaper labor than white people, and in order to prevent the companies from simply employing more and more black people for lower and lower wages so that they can make even more profits, the government wanted to prevent that. So instead of labor unions, it recognized individual native welfare officers as the representation of black employees. This entire dynamic in and of itself is very different from BEE, but what is even more important is that the law actually excluded all the sectors in which over 95% of black workers were employed at the time: the mines, agriculture, and domestic services. As a matter of fact, this law in reality pertained to a very small group of mostly white and colored urban employees, and its impact on black labor at the time was actually negligible, as most black people were working in the industries that were excluded from this law, and this law also didn't prevent them from getting jobs, only preventing them from joining labor unions in certain sectors. The other major apartheid law applying to labor relations would only come into force in 1953, and it was known as the Native Labour Settlement of Disputes Act number 48 of 1953, which made all strikes by black Africans in South Africa illegal and set up a system whereby they could settle labour disputes through a system including the Native Labour Board control. Again, this law only pertained to the settlement of labour disputes, not to who may have what jobs and in what positions. It did not reserve any jobs for any whites at all. And here's the real surprise. The only law during the entire era of apartheid which allowed, not enforced, but allowed for the reservation of certain jobs for certain people of certain races came in 1956, when the Industrial Conciliation Act was amended by Section 77, which stated the following: the Minister, referring to the Minister of Labour, may, after consultation with the Industrial Tribunal by notice in the Gazette, reserve any occupation or any class of work or any part thereof for persons belonging to a specific race or for persons of a specific sex or for persons holding a specific qualification. This law empowered the Minister of Labour to designate specific jobs for specific races or for males or females, and so when the Minister of Labour issued a job reservation proclamation under Section 77, it would typically list a particular industry, such as engineering, railways, printing, construction, as well as the specific trade or grade, such as, let's say, fitter, turner, electrician, and the racial group entitled to occupy that job. And so, between 1956 and 1968, the only 12-year period in which Ministries of Labour used this power, there were 1,700 distinct occupational categories that were reserved for a particular group. For example, if we look at how these proclamations were implemented, Government Notice R1177 of 1962 determined that sewing, pressing and cutting jobs in the Western Cape Province, one of the sub-regions of the Cape Province, for the coloured workers only. The stated aim was to protect coloured females in and around Cape Town from competition by African migrant labourers who were beginning to enter the city's industrial zones. So, even the provisions under this act were often only regional or only limited to a specific city, and not even for white people in most of the cases of the proclamations that we can find. As the example above shows, the government actually sometimes reserved jobs for non-white groups or non-white groups of a certain sex as well. And what is interesting is that the act was frozen in practice and formally fell into disuse after 1968, and it was officially repealed in 1981. This means that by 1981, 13 years before the ANC came into power, apartheid segregated labour practices had already been eradicated. It was actually eradicated 13 years prior to that in 1968, but for the sake of proof, we can say it ended in 1981. Let me reiterate this. By 1981, there were no longer any laws enforced that gave the Minister of Labour or any other state body or any entity the power to reserve jobs or occupations by race. This means that if we take the 1968 date when the Act actually fell out of use, BEE has already been in power or already been in use for longer than apartheid had ever had job reservation laws. Let that sink in for a minute. BEE had been in use longer than apartheid did ever have a time of job reservations for different races. So in reality, the only period in which anything akin to white economic empowerment or reverse BEE was practiced in South Africa was the 28 years between 1953 and 1981. But even this wasn't limited to reserving certain jobs for white people, as it sometimes even reserved jobs for other races or specifically women of other races. Perhaps the most important part of this, the 1956 Industrial Conciliation Act, did not apply in the black homelands. These homelands were purposefully excluded from the statutory definition of South Africa for labor administration purposes. In other words, in all of these territories in which blacks enjoyed total self-determination based on their historical rights to the land, there was absolutely zero labor discrimination at any point during the time of apartheid. Black people were free to set up businesses and employ as many of their own people as they like within the territories of the homelands. In fact, one of the reasons many big businessmen invested massively into the development of the homelands, such as in the case of Sun City, for example, was the fact that it was located in the independent homeland of Bophuthatswana and allowed hotels and resorts to access much cheaper, more flexible black labor. That is also, of course, because gambling was illegal in South Africa and they set up the casino there, but that's also another part of it. So at the end of the day, the conclusion is this. While there are indeed similarities between a certain 28-year period during apartheid and the 27 years of affirmative action and BEE that we have under the ANC since 1998, the apartheid system reflected much more of a protectionist labor model based on the idea of migrant labor than BEE does with its total and downright discrimination against all people supposedly recognized as full citizens of the same country. There are many countries in the world that have protectionist labor and immigration laws that shield their native population against competition from the outside. So while apartheid labor laws can perhaps be criticized as rogue distortions of protectionism, BEE is a downright, total, destructive and discriminatory practice that, quite absurdly, even currently prohibits individuals such as Elon Musk, the wealthiest man on the planet, from doing business in their own home countries. Apartheid South Africa had only one law allowing for the reservation of jobs of certain races, and that law was only enforced in certain parts of the country, in certain sectors, and during a very small time. It is especially the fact that labor laws in South Africa were much more decentralized and widely differed from one industry to the next and one region to the next that makes it almost incomparable to BEE. But we would perhaps have more of a one-on-one comparison if, for example, Afrikaner territories were recognized under Section 235 of the Constitution, such as Orania, and were to be excluded from BEE, for example, like the homelands were excluded from apartheid labor laws. Imagine there were no BEE being applied to Orania. Massive businesses could move there and not be needed to comply to BEE regulations. Can you imagine what consequences that would have if certain territories or even provinces were to be excluded from the demands of BEE? My guess is that it would lead to massive investments and massive developments that perhaps even outshine the way that Sun City and other businesses were developed in the homelands in the 70s and 80s. In a recent video, I highlighted the fact that despite all the rhetoric from liberals, reverse apartheid doesn't exist in South Africa. But what if it did? Check out our full video by clicking on this link appearing on your screen right now. And remember to become a paid member of the Willem Petsche Group. We need your support to continue make these videos to change the hearts and minds of people. Just follow the steps on the banner underneath me. Goodbye and God bless.